Meeting is being recorded.
Okay, I think technically we've only got 19 because one of those is our recording bot. But I think that since we're already going a little bit late, we might as well just jump into the questions. So hopefully the people that submitted them are here for the most part, because we had a few of them where I was wanting to get some more details on the questions themselves. I guess we will just jump right in. So one of the most common ones we were getting was just what's going to be the timeline on REST API coming in. And we got that question last month as well. So in the future, if you have a question like this, maybe you'll be able to hit Control F. I've actually already got some of it, and that's one of them on the Office Hours landing page. So when you go to sign up for Office Hours, you can hit Control F, type in REST or whatever the question was, and it may have been in last month's or the month before's meeting, and we'll have that marked. So if you have a question that you think might have already been asked before, then that's something you can always check for there. Do we have somebody on from Standards yet? I don't know if we have our Standards rep. I'm not seeing.
Eric was supposed to join, but
Yeah. I don't see Eric on from Standards right now.
Yeah.
So what I can say
separately, you can go ahead. But yeah, I think it's just, I know the last update I had, they're still working on that standard.
Yeah. It's something where they're still working on it, and we don't necessarily have a specific timeline yet. We had somebody on from Standards last month that spent a little bit more time talking about why that's still in development, where that's at. And I just don't have the technical skill to kind of rehash that, but I think that last month's meeting would be a good one to check in on. And again, that is on the same website where you signed up. Just scroll a little bit past the RSVP link, and you'll see last month's meeting right there. Okay. I did have one that was a little bit more specific about API that is what we currently have. We had somebody asking about vendor bills, how you use Promo Standards to integrate with the vendors who also use Promo Standards and automate the inputting of bills into an external software. So is that something where you have a little bit of experience with, either of you as volunteers?
Yeah, I think and again, I'm not sure who asked that question, so I'm going to respond to my best judgment. I think the way I understood was, I believe they were using a platform called Fishbowl, ERP platform. So I think this is pretty standard for all ERP platforms when you're trying to integrate through Promo Standards. And to be clear, Promo Standard is just a way to access data, right? So let's say you have an ERP system, or you have an e-commerce platform, or you have a WMS system, whatever might be the case, the end user platform, there's a middle layer that you're trying to build to connect to your customer, or in this case, probably the vendor system, and you're trying to pull data through Promo Standards, right? You're using that mechanism. So you're getting invoice related data for all the purchase orders you have placed with this vendor, and you're getting that information in a raw format. And then your middleware or your ERP will have a way to translate that raw data, the raw XML data, into a vendor format bill. Now that is different for every ERP, right? So if you're on NetSuite or D365 or Oracle, SAP, whatever that might be, eventually that is where the capability or additional development might be required to consume that raw invoice data and convert that into a vendor bill. But I believe most of the ERP today have that functionality, either out of box or you have to do some customizations on top of it. But I think that's how I understood the question. So Promo Standards can give you the information, the raw information, but to convert that into a vendor bill, you will need some additional capability within your ERP software or within the middleware you're using to connect with your vendor system to convert that into a vendor bill.
Just making sure to see if we have them on the call, make sure we got their question down. If not, they'll probably have to watch this recording later. Doesn't look like it, so hopefully that answered their question. If not, they'll be back next month probably to double check on that one. Okay. We had somebody asking about product data. Specifically, they were looking to pull inventory and pricing. I believe that's standard part of the integration. So do we have the rep from SwitchTag with us right now? Not seeing him. I think not having that link definitely, or that link breaking definitely threw us a little bit. Testing your endpoints to see what customers will see. I believe that would be the validator. Can we talk a little bit about the web service validator? Or is that not going to be what that applies to?
Was this related to just the validation of the endpoints?
We have a question in the chat. He's asking if there's a way to test endpoints to see what customers are seeing.
Is there a way we can test our endpoint to see what our customers will see? Again, depending on who is asking, whether it's a supplier or this, I'm assuming it's a supplier, but as a supplier, if you are exposing an endpoint and you're going, oh yeah, we're a supplier. Okay. So I believe, and I haven't looked at the validator, so somebody who is familiar with the validator or seen recently, it's been a while since I've looked at the Promo Standards validator, but I believe you are a supplier, you put in your endpoint, you validate it, run through some basic validations, right? And it gives you an output. I am trying to remember if the output gave you the payload of your endpoint. If that's the case, that's what most likely this customer, the distributor or your end user would see that. But if that's not the case, then that is, I believe, the only open validator available through Promo Standards. Having said that, there are other third-party marketplace validators available. You're welcome to go through those and look at those. They provide a little bit more detailed, in-depth, granular response to your services. So you're welcome to use, go and peruse those and see what works. But on the website, I believe on our website, it's just, the simple validator validates your endpoint. It basically goes and checks whether you are meeting all the mandatory requirements, right? Your optional, the required fields and all of that. So it does a quick check and make sure it's clean. So nothing beyond that gets validated right now. So, I was getting 500. Yeah, we'll have to work with, I'm looking at the chat. Somebody's getting the 500 error. So we'll have to look into that. Georgia, if you can, maybe they can reach out to you, Alex, or Jessica, and then we can figure out if there's an issue with the validator.
Yeah, I'll see if we can figure that out. They're still accessing it.
Another response, yes, SOAP UI Validator is a great tool as well internally, right? So if you're a supplier and you are exposing your endpoints, you run those through SOAP Validator. There are other UI validators available to validate the XML request response, so you can use those as well. I'll send a link to the validator, yeah. Someday.
And I would also say this kind of ties into the SAQ. You're free to stop me if I'm wrong, but if you're just looking, not to test the validator to make sure it's working, but if you want to make sure, or testing your endpoint to make sure it's working, but you're wanting to make sure that your endpoint is up to code or see how it's, it stacks up against other people's endpoints, make sure you're doing the right things, then the self-assessment questionnaire would be a great next step once you confirm it is working to make sure that it is good. And that's something you can find on our blog. Currently, it's on the top page of our blog still.
I believe you may have to log in to access the validator, as I understand. But here's the link to the validator.
I thought the validator was a member benefit.
Yeah, I believe so. I had to log in to get access to that. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, you have to be a member. I think you can be a free member and still get access.
At the very least, you have to have an account. I'm pretty sure as long as you have an account, you can access it. So
you have to be a paying member.
You have to be a paying member? Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. We had some people asking about product data and specifically decoration data, was one that I was seeing come up in a few places. People were wanting to know how others were organizing imprint data. Let's see. I'll read that question verbatim. That was interested to know how other suppliers that offer decoration are organizing their imprint data for their platform. Even better if some of the imprint options are default or included. And they were asking, think about comparing Promo Standards decoration data to Sage. Maybe they're looking to make the jump. Not something we have a good answer for.
I can try to answer. I think just because, I'm not fully familiar with the decoration side, so we don't decorate, but I was hoping somebody from either the standards committee or somebody who is a supplier and they do decoration for business might be able to answer that.
Yeah, I think we may just be out of luck.
I think they might be the appropriate response for that.
Yeah, I do know that decoration is something that we've been talking about a lot, especially we talked about a lot at Tech Summit, and part of the resulting conversation from that was maybe we look at making a work group specifically for decorators to further optimize what the standards look like for decorators, since that's become a much bigger thing as of late. So definitely
there is a decorator subgroup, work group or something like that.
Yeah, it's just not something that I think we're openly, pushing for people to join yet. But yeah, it is something that we've kind of formed in the background or looking to bring to the forefront. So once we start sending out invitations to join committees and things like that and work groups as part of our newsletter, that will be one of them that's available. So if you are wanting, you're an advisory or an adopting member and you're wanting to get involved with helping how the future standards will handle decoration data, that's a place that you'd be able to do that in the near future.
Alex, was this question specifically for just decoration, or was it a supplier selling items that are decorated? Because that would be two different things. Because I think the work group was set up to handle just decorators.
Hi. Sorry, you busy? In a meeting?
We have somebody who's on a meeting. That was a question from somebody with Spectre. So again, Spectre and Co.
Okay.
I think the way I'm looking at the question here again, it seems like what they're hoping to accomplish from the question is how the data, especially the imprint and decoration data, is organized on platforms like Sage. So, and third-party platforms. It could be any third-party platform, right? We have third-party platforms that are directly integrated with Promo Standards, right? And so they are pulling our supplier data through PPC, the product pricing config, and that has a number of decoration-related segments. Imprint data, location, decoration method, setup charges, run charges, so all of those are there. Some are default, some are included, so there's a lot of variation there. What I can do is I am happy to share our best practices, a link to that documentation, which should provide some information on this front and address that question. One thing I would say is, depending again, every platform is different, and how they set up internally on their platform, the information related to decoration is up to them and the supplier who's working with that platform, right? So in this case, if you have your product set up on Sage, most likely you'll have to work with Sage and then make sure that your products are accurately presented and set up the right way with the right decoration information on those platforms. But from a Promo Standards perspective, it's just a layer of pushing data or accessing that data, right? If you're a supplier, you have an endpoint exposed, you want to make sure whatever product and SKUs you are setting up, you have the right decoration related information set up in available through PPC. And then it's up to the end user platform how you want to display that.
Yeah, just to add to that, Ajay, the suppliers that we work with, when they connect with Sage, it is different from how they connect with ASI and promo standards. They've got their own deal. And then to your point, there's imprint methods and details directly associated with each of their SKUs. Now they may have a shared amount that they pass over, but they have it connected through that SKU when they send it through the deal.
And then Jay, did you send that best practices info directly?
No, I'll put it in the chat here.
Okay.
And I don't know if they're on the call, but they're welcome to reach out to me. We have a lot of expertise in this area, on best practices committee and standards committee. If they have follow-up questions, they can put it on the Slack. We'll be able to help them out.
Yeah, we had another rep on the call asking about imprint data specifically for multiple products, multiple decoration locations. Georgia, are you here? I believe you are.
Sorry, yes, I am.
Did you have anything specifically you wanted to ask about while you were on the call, or would you just like us to forward you that that best practice data? Anything you wanted to bring up?
The best practice data would be great. I think something that came up recently on our end was around, I guess the scenario where it's going to a decorator, decorating multiple products with the same imprint information. And so that was kind of the very specific question that I had, but I think, maybe that's something I can find in the best practices.
Georgia, are you referencing multiple artwork files for the same location ID? Is that what you're referencing?
No, it was for decoration only. When there is the same decoration across multiple products. So like long sleeve t-shirt, short sleeve t-shirt, but all of them get the same logo on the front. That was the scenario that kind of came up in question recently. So I was just kind of curious if, that would just follow the standard, 2 line items with the decoration details for each one. Which I kind of assumed it was, but just wanted to double check if there was a different way that should be handled.
I think you're on the right track there. If I understood your question, what you're sharing makes sense. So you have a product with multiple decoration locations, right? And then you're trying to place an order. With those. So yeah, you will probably place the order with multiple decoration locations. You have the location ID and then the imprint method and whatever the artwork file is related to that location ID. So we'll probably share that in the PO. So I think that would be the process.
Okay.
For that.
All right. I assumed as much. Thanks for confirming that.
We tend to struggle with is and I know this may seem basic, but the definition of location versus decoration. So in our scenario, we have a tent. There are 8 locations that you can choose from, and you can have whatever piece of artwork that you would like on there, but you may only choose 4 locations to have your imprint. And so it would seem in our scenario, the only way that we can put that into place is if we do a decoration, but we only get one decoration. Like if you go in promo standards terms, you only get one decoration essentially per location. Otherwise, we can say you have one location and you have 8 decorations to go on there. Is that the right way that you would do an imprinted tent that has the option of 8 locations, but you may be only able to select 4 out of the 8? Because I can't seem to figure out another way to do it other than to put it at just a really low level at the decoration versus, because I would imagine you would set it at the location because there's 8 locations you can put artwork on.
I think you might be on the right track. So if, Kathy, if I understood, so you got 8 locations, but you only are allowing 4 locations,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
you have a location. So in your PPC, you are exposing all 8 as the imprint location ID locations, or just the 4 that?
Well, that's the struggle currently, is getting the data to fit so that you have the option of 8, but only allowing for the selection of 4.
The selection of 4, I see.
And so, like, we don't really have a concept of decorations because you put one piece of artwork per location. And so that's been a struggle for us because it doesn't necessarily, like, we have to have an extra layer of hierarchy in order to use promo standards in this scenario. And so I'm trying to figure out, is that the only way to make that work, is to use decorations?
I would think so, if I'm understanding it correctly. So you have a tent, you have 8 locations, you're only allowing 4. So when you receive an order for placing imprint decoration on a specific area on the tent, they will have to choose the location on where they want it, right? And you have exposed that information to the PPC, so you will expose those location IDs and whatever imprint method is available for
Well,
those locations.
there would essentially only be one location ID though, correct? Because all of those 8 areas that you can use would have to be in the decoration, correct?
Right.
Okay.
But yeah.
So it would be great, just in general, if, like, just from a promo standards perspective, because since we don't have a concept of decorations, it would be great if there was like an option for max locations and min locations at that location level versus having to essentially define it all again at the decoration level. So just a food for thought for future versions.
We'll write that down for the
because
standards
it's like
committee.
it's a whole level of extra hierarchy we have to account for, which we have no concept of in the larger print format arena.
All right. Yeah, I wish we had our standards up to give a little bit more, info on if we had that kind of in the works already, but definitely I took a note of that. So that's something we'll pass along to that team. Let's see. What other questions would be good to cover? Data integration, how to start integrating into e-commerce stores. So this is one that I always try to preface with, depending on your e-commerce platform, there are, if you have access to the service provider directory and you're on something like Shopify, for example, you can actually go directly onto the service provider directory and look for Shopify compatible applications. And there are a lot of services already made out of the gate to handle promo standards integration with your products built into Shopify. I can't give opinions on, which one is better than the other. That's something you may have to look at the options and consult with those service providers. But if your e-commerce platform is Shopify, then it's pretty straightforward, at least to get into using promos, get started using promo standards with one of those service provider made applications. So definitely go check that out. Do we have Ali on the call from Brand Junkie?
Alex, I don't think.
Sorry, I'm here.
You're right. Go ahead, Mike.
I would just also say, if you're looking to leverage promo standards to feed data into your e-commerce site, I make sure you're architecting correctly, right? The intent is not for suppliers to be your cache of inventory. So like if your website is dependent upon, don't make your website dependent upon rendering its page after making thousands of inventory calls to vendors. Like you may be disappointed in some of the response times that then impacts your e-commerce site. So just like talk to your suppliers. What's their best practice? How often should you be pulling data so that your e-commerce site performs the way you want for your customers, and you're not dependent upon vendors' performance that you have less control over.
Sorry, Allie, did you have anything specifically you wanted to ask about with that data integration on e-commerce?
No, not really. We're in the our e-commerce platform is Salesforce, and our ERP that it's currently integrated with is Acumatica. So I'm assuming this is a little more technical than my understanding, but I'm assuming it would be some combination of it ties in with Acumatica, like our ERP, instead of directly into our e-commerce platform, but I don't.
Probably. I think Acumatica is already integrated with Promo Standard, if I remember correctly. So yeah, you may want to explore that further with your contact at Acumatica. But as far as I remember, they have some capability to work with, and then, whoever your suppliers are, I'm assuming, I don't know if you're a supplier.
Okay.
You can work with, then you can connect with any of your suppliers or distributors through that mechanism through Acumatica.
Perfect. Yeah, we're just kind of exploring right now.
Yeah, I don't know about Salesforce, so that's maybe there's somebody has done some work on the Salesforce side. I don't have that info, but I think Acumatica for sure. I think they have some capability.
Okay, that's great. That's good to know. Thank you.
Oh, we've got a big question in the chat. Here we are. Do we see that one from Josh?
Another one from Josh.
Yeah. Gaining credentials to supplier endpoints for development and testing.
I don't know, Alex, I have some thoughts on this. And this is a great question. Yeah, I know from a best practices standpoint, we're working on streamlining the onboarding user experience. And this goes to the heart of that in terms of accessing supplier contact information, credentialing. Right now, I believe the process is just to go through our contacts page, reach out to the contact on our, for whoever supplier, distributor who you're trying to connect, and then ask for credentials, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We get the question a lot, and really a lot of times the answer does just come down to, well, you just kind of have to bother them. So I'm definitely interested to hear. Definitely interested to hear what you guys are working on.
Even when I try to use the PSM, I only don't get a response. Yeah.
If you're using the tool, like the tool is built so that you can request endpoints from suppliers, and if you're not getting a response, like the Promo Standards org can try and help you do that, but there's a certain amount of supplier maintenance of their own contact information and responsiveness that, like, the supplier has to take on that responsibility.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Yeah, it looks like they haven't gotten a response from suppliers.
Yeah. So, Joshua, like, I guess it would be interesting to understand who those are and whether you're getting no response, or those responses or your requests are going in, like they're not even getting them. And that's maybe a little bit that we can publicly shame suppliers into responding, but it does come down to there's no Promo Standards does not have the ability to give you credentials, right? You have to get those from the supplier. And so maybe there's some way we can facilitate helping you get that, but in the end, the supplier has to, set their system up for you.
Yeah. And in the end, we are just kind of making or guiding the direction of standards for you to use, and we're kind of hosting it all in one place, but we're not, we don't have people to go out and kind of be enforcers of the promo standards rules. That's why, for example, instead of having somebody check your data, we have a self-assessment questionnaire where you check your data yourself and kind of cross-reference that. That way it's as objective as possible because, we just don't have we're not the kind of organization that can send out people to enforce, hey, you've got to get back with this person. So unfortunately, a lot of times it does just come down to interpersonal, which is tough to say. I had somebody ask what you get access to as a non-paying member. We had all of it listed on the application page. I need to update some of it because we've shifted some things around where we thought, maybe we want people to be able to access this now that we know that as long as they're logged in, we know who they are, we know who's accessing it. It's okay. Most of the things that are described on the non-member access tier on that page are still up to date. I will say that we are kind of updating it. We're slowly rolling out more and more stuff as the committee kind of agrees. Yeah, we'd like our non-members to be able to see that too, on that resources tab. So I would say it doesn't hurt. It's free. We promise we won't blow up your email inbox other than for office hours. Just go ahead and make a non-member account and see what opens up there. And again, there may be more in the future as we kind of back and forth with committees or we make new tools and new resources for you guys to access.
But Alex, at a high level, like getting the free account onto Promo Standards gives you access to the documentation around the standard. The standards are free to use, but when you start talking about additional value of like using the validator or contacts or things like that, that becomes part of the paid membership or a paid level of membership. So free gets you access to the standards. We want everybody to have that. It's open source, like it's free to use, but the other pieces are where you start paying for a membership to support the work that goes into making those available. And if I can just step back to Joshua's question around like suppliers setting up a standard dev account, I'll just say like, as a supplier, I don't love the idea of having a generic dev account available to just anybody who wants to use it because they're going to be hitting my test systems. And so I want to govern the access to customers of ours. And so that's part of what may slow that down for other suppliers to adopt your suggestion, Josh.
Absolutely. And did you guys see any questions standing out on the current lineup? I have a few that again they're related to REST and to new standards, and again we just don't have that rep on the call this month. I will say that we did have a pretty long conversation about 3.0 and about REST last month. So again, if you were coming in with general questions about what the future standards look like, I would hop on to the recording of last month's call and watch those. But I'm also going to open up the floor unless volunteers, you guys see a question on there you think we're,
Alex, I just say that there occasionally the REST question comes up, and I think it even came up in the chat, like what's the plan for? And we have talked about it, and there's a standard coming out that's a version of a standard that's going to come out that's going to be REST. But I'd go back and listen to the other one to talk more about it. There's again, any of these changes are driven by volunteers who want to do it. And then it's not just that the standard is available, but you need suppliers and distributors to adopt the new standard as much as the standard gets proposed.
That's true. Off the top of my head, I believe they are in beta.
I believe you're right. The first REST API or the first, standard.
All right. And seriously, don't be shy. Feel free if you have any questions right now, jump in and we'd be happy to see if we can answer it.
This is Joshua. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. So, look, I appreciate all the information. This is the first time I've actually got on one of y'all's office hours, but I've been following y'all since I think like 2019. So I'm the developer and owner of TCal Shop Management Software Solution, by the way. So I've been integrated with some of y'all's endpoints now for about 3 or 4 years, but I'm actually in the process of releasing a new product in October, and we're going full integration with Promo Standards. So really, really big effort. We've been working on it for the last 2-3 months, and we're really looking forward to seeing what that does for our customer base and for our integration with the suppliers. I guess the heartburn for me as a developer, I did have a business partner at one time when we started this business almost 18 years ago, and he actually had a local shop here. So getting access to supplier accounts and all that wasn't a problem because he had an actual screen printing shop, and getting access to those accounts wasn't a problem. But now that I've done bought him out and he's no longer a part of my venture here, as a developer without a shop, without accounts with these suppliers, I have found that some of these suppliers really don't want to give access unless you're an account holder. And so that's the problem that the developers are facing, and that I still continue to face and struggle with as I try to push forward. And I mean, I've been doing software development now for about 25 years. My background is I came from NASA. I've been there almost 20 years developing software for them. So I think one of the things that kind of gives me heartburn is that I would think that as y'all are pushing forward with the Promo Standards and trying to improve things, which, like I said, I can tell that the supplier adoption is went through the roof, and I mean, I love that. So I think that there needs to be a clear path for developers. And what I mean for that is I don't know how you work around it. I know that it is a struggle, but for guys like me that are providing pretty decent sized software to that same industry space, how do we work around getting access to validate things? And I'm not picking on anybody when I say this, but I can go to one vendor and pull their media content, and it's structured a little bit differently than whenever I go to SAMR. And I'll just say this, I've been integrated with SAMR since like early on, since before Promo Standards was even really known. I integrated with SAMR many, many, many years ago. And so they've kind of set the ball really high for us, that we're trying to achieve for all of our suppliers. But what we find is, I can set my app up to handle media content a certain way, but then I go and pull media for another company and it's not structured the same way. So I have actually come up with a way to deal with that on my own, that I'm working on right now. And part of that is using the classes that y'all have in there for the different types of media. And I'm actually creating a one-to-one mapping inside of my own system that will allow me to say, hey, look, this class for this vendor actually gives me what I want for this area. And I'm doing like a one-to-one mapping on my own side for that. But I think the two struggles I have as a developer is that variation with the media content and just getting access to the supplier accounts. And so before I can allow my customers to bring on one of these other suppliers, I need to be able to load that supplier up, look at how their content is structured so that I can do this one-to-one mapping that I need for my platform before I can open that supplier up for my users to use it. So that's kind of some of the struggles from my side. And look, I'm banking on you guys with the Promo Standards. I'm going all in. So this is something I've been planning for about 5 years, and we're finally at the time where we're doing it now. And so it's exciting. I appreciate all the effort that all of you guys are doing, guys and gals. I appreciate the effort that y'all put into it. I've been keeping up with y'all for a while and watching the progression, but just wanted to give the feedback there.
Thank you.
And I did drop that link to the office hours page in the show. Again, like I said, you scroll right down and you can see last month's if you are interested in that. Anybody else on the call got anything they want to raise? All right. If we don't have anybody else with questions, I guess we will conclude this meeting. Again, I'm so sorry we didn't have a standards rep just on this call. It looks like timing didn't work out. Maybe the link being down caused some issues. But I will stick around on the call. And if you have anything that comes up over the next 5-10 minutes, feel free, let me know, and I'll be happy to answer that to the best of our ability. Thank you guys so much for coming by.
You guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, that was Jessica. We really appreciate her getting that out because we don't know what happened. We tested the meeting link earlier and everything was fine. And of course, within, 5-10 minutes before the meeting, everything broke. Is what it is.
I was trying 10 different ways to get in.
So was I, because I was
and I'm like, what is going on?
They moved me to be hosting the meeting at kind of the last minute. I wasn't going to be hosting it today, and so I'm reviewing the questions and I'm checking my microphone and it works fine. And then I stop back in 30 minutes later and it's like, the meeting invite is invalid. What do we do? So she was a step ahead of me, thankfully.
I gotta run. I got a call coming in.
Thank you so much for attending. You have a good one.
Hey, sorry. Hang on. I'm still in a webinar.
The recording has stopped.